The crack of the slap echoed in my ears. My head snapped to the right, my vision filled with stars, my left cheek went numb, and a high-pitched whine exploded in my ear. I will never forget that moment. My name is Anna Gray. I'm 24 years old, and I sell perfume at a department store downtown, Dior, Chanel, YSL. Everyone thinks it smells glamorous, but I spray those tester strips all day and my nose has gone permanently dead. The pay is okay, enough to get by, but I have a 1-year-old daughter, and everything costs money. Mark is my husband. We were high school sweethearts. We started dating at 16 and got married at 22, 6 years of turning a boyfriend into a husband and then into my daughter's father. He works as a mechanic at an auto shop, good with his hands and quick on his feet. In the early days of our marriage, he was good to me. I mean really good. When I was pregnant, he got up every morning to make me porridge. When my legs cramped at night, he'd climb out of bed and rub them without complaining. The day Lily was born, he held that tiny, wrinkled, red-faced little thing and cried harder than I did. Back then, I thought this was my life. Just ordinary. But I had someone who loved me, a home, a child. That was enough. Now when I look back, every single I thought was bullshit. We lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment on the west side of the city, about 650 square feet. Not big, but kept clean. My father had put down most of the down payment, and Mark and I saved for almost 2 years to cover the rest. The deed had both our names on it. Small as it was, Lily's little flower print clothes hung drying on the balcony. The kitchen was filled with dishes I'd bought one plate at a time, one bowl at a time. And on the living room wall hung our family portrait, Mark holding 1-month-old Lily, me leaning against his shoulder, the three of us beaming like we'd won the lottery. Back then, I was genuinely happy. Genuinely. December 24th. Christmas Eve. The store closed early, so I packed up my counter at 4 and went to the supermarket for a turkey and a small cake. I was going to roast the turkey, cut the cake, let Lily clap from her high chair, and when Mark got home, we'd open the Christmas present I'd bought for her, a little plush reindeer that sang when you squeezed its belly. I hummed as I walked home. The streets were strung with fairy lights and Christmas trees, the air sweet with roasted chestnuts. A massive tree at the corner had a crowd gathered around it, taking photos. I squeezed through, the turkey heavy in my hand, the plastic bag cutting into my fingers. But I was happy. I was fishing for my keys at the front door when I heard laughter from inside. A woman's laughter. I paused. I thought it was Lily's babysitter, the older woman I'd hired to watch her during the day. But that woman was in her 60s, with a loud, raspy chuckle. This laughter was light, silvery, coquettish. I hesitated, then slid the key into the lock anyway. The door swung open and a wave of cigarette smoke hit me. That sweet, cloying smell of ladies' cigarettes, mixed with heavy perfume, Dior J'adore, the very brand I sold at my counter. My stomach dropped. I set the turkey on the shoe cabinet, kicked off my shoes, and walked inside. The living room had 2 people in it. Mark was on the couch, and beside him, lounging, was a blonde woman. She still had on a red coat, legs crossed, elbow draped over the back of the couch, a long slender cigarette between her fingers. The coffee table was littered with takeout boxes, sushi, pizza, skewers, and a bottle of red wine with 2 glasses. The TV was playing Christmas carols, animated snowflakes drifting across the screen. It looked like a couple enjoying a romantic Christmas Eve. And I looked like someone who'd walked into the wrong apartment. I stood at the entrance to the living room, keys still in my hand. 3 seconds. 5. 10. Mark looked up at me. His face showed no panic, no guilt, no shame at being caught. Just annoyance. Irritation, like I'd shown up at the wrong time. The blonde woman smiled at me. That sideways smile, like she was watching a mildly amusing animal. She flicked her ash into the glass ashtray I'd bought, the one with the little cat painted on it, the one I'd spent half an hour picking out at the home goods store. "You're back," Mark said. "This is Emily. A friend of mine. She's having dinner here tonight. Go make some hot dishes, the takeout's gotten cold." I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. My throat felt stuffed with cotton. I looked at the table, 2 wineglasses, 2 sets of utensils, 2 takeout boxes. No third place setting. They hadn't planned for me. Then something hit me. I turned and looked toward Lily's room. The door was cracked open, the lights off inside. I hurried over and pushed it open. Lily lay alone in her little bed, covered by a thin blanket, her tiny face flushed bright red, dried tear tracks crusted on her cheeks. She'd cried herself to sleep. I reached out and touched her forehead, it was burning hot. I jerked my hand back. Lily had been sick for days. I'd given her medicine that morning and told the babysitter to check her temperature every 2 hours. But the babysitter wasn't here now. Lily had been left alone in that little bed with a blanket as thin as gauze. I scooped her up. She stirred in my arms, her small body limp and heavy, letting out a weak moan. She was burning up, her lips cracked and dry, her breath raspy and rattling. I pressed my face to her forehead, the heat shocked me, sent a spike straight through my chest. I carried her back to the living room. The turkey was still on the shoe cabinet, the plastic bag damp and leaking a puddle onto the floor. I stared at Mark, my voice shaking so badly I could barely form the words. "Lily's burning up. Did you give her medicine? Did you cover her properly? Where's the babysitter?" Mark frowned, setting down his wineglass. "I gave her the stuff you left this morning. It's just a cold, don't make a big deal out of it." The babysitter took the day off, Emily came over to help watch her. The blonde woman raised her wineglass toward me with a little wave. "Relax, I was keeping an eye on her. She didn't fall or anything." I didn't even look at her. I just stared at Mark. The Christmas lights we'd bought the year we got married were blinking on the wall, multicolored glints flickering across his face, making his expression seem to shift and harden. "Mark," I said, each word deliberate and cold, "tell her to leave. Right now. It's Christmas Eve. Get Lily's medicine and let's talk about this." Mark stood up. He's a head taller than me. He used to look down at me with that soft, teasing smile. But that night, his eyes were cold as steel. "Anna," he said, his voice low and sharp, "can you not ruin this? Emily is my guest. You walk in with that face and act like this? Go roast the turkey. Make some hot food. Let's all have a nice evening together. What's so hard about that?" I stepped back, pulling Lily tighter against my chest. "You want me to celebrate with her? You brought her into my home, she's sitting on my couch, using my ashtray, and you want me to cook for the 2 of you?" Mark's jaw tightened. I knew that expression, it was the one he wore right before he exploded. Lips pressed into a thin line, chin set hard. I used to cave when I saw that look. I'd back down, soothe him, apologize for whatever had set him off. But I didn't back down that night. "Anna." He spoke one word at a time, like hammer blows. "I don't want to fight on Christmas Eve. Put the baby down. Go cook. I'll let this slide. But if you keep pushing, you're not going to like what happens." The blonde woman let out a soft laugh, smoke curling from her lips. "Mark, your wife has quite a temper, doesn't she?" Mark glanced at her, then turned back to me. He stepped forward, and Lily and I were backed against the wall. He raised his hand. I thought he was going to point at me. Then his hand swung. Crack. My head snapped to the right, my vision exploding with stars. The left side of my face went completely numb and a deafening ring filled my ears. Lily jerked awake and started screaming, that raw, desperate wail. I stumbled sideways into the wall and slid down it, barely keeping my balance. I tasted blood, my tongue found the split inside my lip. Lily's screams rattled in my ears. She thrashed in my arms, her little nails raking across my neck, burning scratches. I held her tight, crouched against the wall, head down, left cheek swelling hot. Drops of blood fell from my mouth to the floor. 1. 2. Mark stood over me, his hand hanging at his side. He glanced at his palm, flexed his fingers, then turned his back to me. "Get out," he said, his voice coming from behind his shoulder. "Take her and go. Come back when you've figured out how to act." The blonde woman stubbed out her cigarette, rose slowly, and padded to the front door. She pulled it open a crack, and icy air rushed in, cutting through me like a blade. She leaned against the doorframe and waved at me. "Go on," she said. "Your husband wants you to leave." I forced myself to stand. The left side of my face was throbbing with a dull, swollen ache, the ring in my ears still loud. But my legs held. I walked past her, squeezed through that gap in the door, and stepped out into the hallway. The door closed behind me. The lock clicked, soft, like a whisper. But to me, it sounded like a gunshot. I stood in the hallway, wearing my house slippers and a thin sweater, still in my apron. My face was swollen, blood crusting at my lip, hair wild around my head. Lily was sobbing in my arms, her tiny body convulsing with each ragged breath. The motion sensor light in the hallway flickered on and off, on and off. I don't know how long I stood there, 5 minutes, maybe 20. Through the neighbor's door, I could hear laughter and the clink of glasses, Christmas carols floating out. I leaned against the wall, my mind completely blank, the only real sensation being Lily's hot forehead pressed against my chin. I had to move. I knew that. But I had nothing. No phone, it was on the coffee table inside. No purse, it was on the living room floor. Mark hadn't even glanced at them. I didn't have a single coin to make a call. I didn't have many friends. The other perfume girls were having Christmas Eve with their families. I couldn't show up at their doors. No siblings. My mother was gone. My only family was my father, and we'd been estranged for over 2 years. When I'd told him I wanted to marry Mark, he was the only one who said no. He said Mark's eyes were wrong, said he was too young and had no backbone, said his mother was overbearing and would make my life miserable. I thought he was impossible. Mark had been so good to me, how could my father say those things? On my wedding day, I didn't let him walk me down the aisle. I asked Mark's uncle to do it instead. Dad sat in the back row and left right after the ceremony. For 2 years after that, I barely spoke to him. I'd brush him off when he called, return his packages unopened. I told myself I'd rather freeze to death on the street than knock on his door. Then Lily started coughing, violent, full-body spasms, her face turning redder with each heave. I touched her forehead again. Burning. I panicked. I looked down at the doormat. My soggy slippers. Mark's shoes, neatly placed beside the door. And next to them, a pair of red high-heeled boots, tossed askew. I bit my lip, tasting the blood again. Then I headed down the stairs. Outside, the snow was deep. I sank past my ankles with every step. My house slippers soaked through instantly, each step like plunging into ice water. No coat. My thin sweater soaked up the snow like a sponge, clinging to my skin like ice. I unwound my scarf and wrapped Lily in it from head to toe, leaving just her little face exposed. I hunched over her, using my whole body to shield her from the falling snow. I walked east. From my apartment to my father's house, 3 miles. Cars passed occasionally, their headlights sweeping over me and throwing my shadow onto the pavement, a hunched, wild-haired figure in a bloody apron, slippers that had lost all color, staggering through the snow. I looked like a ghost. I fell twice. My knees slammed into the pavement, but my arms never loosened. Lily stayed wrapped in the scarf, safe. I got up and kept going. My toes had gone completely numb, each step felt like walking on pillows. I don't know how long it took. When I reached my father's street, the whole neighborhood was quiet, only the distant pop of fireworks breaking the silence. I lifted my hand to knock, but my fingers were too stiff to bend, they wouldn't make a sound. I pounded with my fist. The thuds echoed down the corridor. The door opened. My father stood there. He was wearing his old plaid bathrobe, threadbare and faded, over a gray thermal shirt. His hair had gone much whiter than I remembered, and he'd lost weight. He looked at me. For a long time. At Lily, bundled in my arms. At the mark on my cheek, the dried blood at my lip, my purpled, frozen toes sticking out of soaking wet slippers. I opened my mouth. The scab on my lip split again and fresh blood trickled down my chin. I tried to speak, but only one word came out. Dad. Then my knees gave way. I dropped to the doorstep, still clutching Lily, my shoulders shaking violently. My father moved in one stride. One hand took Lily, the other hooked under my arm and hauled me to my feet. He was still that strong, pulling me into the house, guiding me to the couch. He set Lily gently on the other end. She'd started crying again, and he patted her back with a steady hand, murmuring, it's okay, in a low, calm voice. He rummaged through a drawer and found a half-full bottle of infant Tylenol, the one he'd sent over when Lily was born, the one I'd never opened. He still had it. He measured the dose, gave it to Lily, then took a warm cloth and wiped her face and neck to bring her fever down. She cried for a while longer, then the medicine took effect. Her sobs softened, her eyes fluttered shut, and she finally fell asleep, her breathing evening out. Then my father poured a glass of hot water and set it in front of me. I took it with both hands, almost dropping it, my fingers were still stiff. The steam hit my face, and I looked down at my reflection in the water, my left cheek swollen to twice its size, my lip split and purple, hair plastered to my cheeks, eyes red-rimmed with burst blood vessels. My father sat down across from me. He didn't rush me. He just sat, waiting for me to be ready. After 3 sips of water, the taste of blood faded a little. I started talking. From the moment I'd come home and found the blonde woman, to Mark telling me to cook, to me refusing, to the slap, to being thrown out. It came out in fragments, my voice raw and cracking. When I got to the slap, the words stuck in my throat for a long moment before I could force them out. My father never moved, just listened, leaning back in his chair, hands resting on his knees, his knuckles white. The silence afterward stretched on. The radiator hissed. Snow kept falling outside. Lily snored faintly under her blanket. I expected him to sigh and say, "I told you so." I expected him to say I'd brought this on myself for not listening to him. But he stood up and walked to the window, his back to me, staring out at the snow. They picked the wrong person, he said. I looked up at his silhouette. Anna, he said without turning, I never taught you many big lessons. But I taught you this: people treat you the way you let them. And you showing up at my door tonight means you're not done fighting. He turned, and his gray-blue eyes caught the lamplight, sharp and clear. So don't give up. Starting tomorrow, I'll handle this. You just do one thing: write down every penny Mark ever mentioned. Money he spent, money he asked for, money he told you about. Write it all down. He walked into his study and came back with a manila envelope. Inside was a key. The small apartment on the west side. It's in your name. Take Lily and stay there for now. Don't worry about anything else. I looked at the key, then at Lily sleeping on the couch. Her face was still red, but her breathing was steady. That night, I took a pen and a piece of paper and started writing. My father sat across from me, asking the occasional question: when did he say he was getting a new car? How much did he say the bonus was? I racked my brain, forcing myself to remember all the little things I'd chosen to ignore. July, he started staying late, said the shop had a big job on expensive imports. August, he got a new iPhone, the latest model, said his boss gave it as a reward. September, new designer shirts in his closet, said they were on clearance. October, he started using my perfume, checking himself in the mirror before leaving the house, asking which scent I liked best. November, he wanted to trade in the car and asked me to borrow money from my dad for the down payment. I said no, and he exploded. December, he brought another woman into our home. By the time I'd filled 3 pages front and back, it was past 3 in the morning. My father took the pages, read them over, and set them aside. All right. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be busy. I lay back on the couch, eyes closed, Lily breathing softly beside me. I listened to her breath, the hiss of the radiator, the occasional car passing outside. My face still throbbed. But something in my chest had loosened. The next morning, my father drove Lily and me to the West Side apartment. 2 bedrooms, small but clean, the kitchen stocked and the fridge full. He'd had it prepared ahead of time. He left me a credit card and a new phone with a new number. Don't take his calls, he said, pulling on his shoes at the door. Let him stew. The more anxious he gets, the sloppier he'll be. I set Lily down on the rug. She pulled herself up on the coffee table and took 2 wobbly steps. The snow had stopped, the sun coming through the windows and catching in her hair. I crouched and opened my arms, and she giggled, stumbling forward into my chest. The first day, Mark called a dozen times. I didn't answer. He texted, starting with anger, Anna, what are you doing? It's Christmas, come home. Then, by afternoon, softer, come back and we can talk. Then, by night, the emotional play, how's Lily? Is her cold better? I'm worried. I stared at that last message for a long time, then put the phone face down. The second day, more messages. He called my coworkers, they said I was on leave. He called a friend of mine, she texted me asking what was going on. I told her it was nothing to worry about. On the third day, I got a friend request from the blonde woman. Her profile picture was her own face, the red lipstick, the lazy smirk. The note said, your husband left something at my place. Want me to send it back? I screenshotted it and sent it to my father. He replied with one word, good. Then he called. She's baiting you. The moment you reply, she'll spin it as you starting a fight. Don't engage. But keep the screenshot. I deleted the request. She sent it twice more. I ignored them both. On the fourth day, my father arrived with a canvas bag. He pulled out file folders, one by one, and laid them on the coffee table. 5 folders. The first folder was our joint bank account statements. My father had highlighted dozens of transactions with a bright marker. Starting last March, Mark had been transferring money out of the account every few days, anywhere from $100 to $800 at a time. The total came to $31,000. The receiving account belonged to one Emily Foster, age 25, an insurance company clerk. The second folder contained a mortgage loan agreement. Last September, Mark had taken out a loan against our apartment, $20,000. The signature on the contract was my name, but the handwriting was sloppy and wrong. My father had included a forensic handwriting comparison, putting my real signature next to the fake one. They didn't match. Forged spouse signature, my father said, tapping the page. That's a crime. The third folder was a vehicle registration form. A silver BMW sedan, registered in Mark Wilson's name. Purchased in October. The down payment was $20,000, the exact amount of the fraudulent loan. The fourth folder was the thickest, printouts of chat logs between Mark and Emily. Over 20 pages. I don't know how my father got them, but he got them. In those messages, Emily called him a baby, told him to dump that hag already, and Mark responded with soon, not yet. She doesn't suspect a thing. I read every page. When I finished, I looked up at my father. Is there more? He gave me a look, then pulled out the fifth folder, documents from the auto shop. Mark had been selling customer data to used car dealers, license plates, VINs, service records, for $50 to $100 a pop. He'd been doing it for almost a year, selling over 200 records. Cash payments. Never deposited into our joint account. 5 folders, spread across the table like a crime scene. My father took off his reading glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. $31,000 in misappropriated funds. $20,000 in fraudulent loans. A car bought with stolen money. Illegal proceeds from selling client data. That's just the money side. Then there's the cheating, the domestic violence, and child endangerment, throwing a sick child out in a snowstorm at night. You already reported that to the police. I stared at the papers for a long time. Sunlight fell across them, printing dates and amounts in cold black ink. I used to believe every text Mark sent me. But my father looked at bank statements, loan contracts, registration dates. Your husband, my father said, packing the files away, built all of this on one assumption, that you were stupid. He never thought you'd come after him. And he never considered that your father is an accountant. That afternoon, my father did 3 things. First, he took me to the bank and froze our joint account. Second, he took me to the police station to file a formal report on the forged signature and the data theft. Third, he called the owner of the auto shop. Mark's boss was a man named Mr. Hayes, one of my father's old clients. My father had done Hayes's books for 5 years, and though they weren't working together anymore, they still kept in touch. On the phone, my father said one casual sentence, "Hey, Hayes, I heard one of your boys is selling customer data on the side. Might want to look into that." There was a pause on the other end. Then Mr. Hayes said, "Thomas, we go back 20 years. Say no more." After my father hung up, he turned to me. Now we wait. Starting the 5th day, Mark lost it. He went back to our apartment and found the locks changed. He started screaming in the hallway. A neighbor called the cops. When they came and ran his ID, They told him the property owner was in the middle of legal proceedings and he wasn't allowed to be there. He was escorted out. Then he went to my department store. Maybe he planned to get down on his knees in front of my counter and beg for me to take him back. But my father had already called the store and put me on leave. Mark found nothing. Then the messages started flooding my new number. I turned on my phone that evening and found over 30 unread messages, my voicemail completely full. They cycled through every tone, pleading, angry, self-pitying, threatening. Anna, please just pick up. We can work this out. How can you be so cold? We've been together for years. Lily is my daughter, I have a right to see her. If you don't let me see her, I'll take you to court. I'm sorry, I really am. I ended it with her. I'll never see her again. Please come home. Don't think you're so special. Who's going to want a single mom with a brat in tow? I took screenshots and sent them to my father. He texted back, keep going. On the 7th day, the auto shop blew up. Mr. Hayes had combed through the security footage and service records, confirmed Mark was selling customer info, and fired him on the spot, no severance, no recommendation. Word spread fast in that small circle. That afternoon, 2 or 3 customers called the shop to complain that they'd been harassed by used car dealers. Mr. Hayes was furious and filed another police report, this time a full criminal complaint. From that day on, Mark stopped harassing me. He was too busy with police interviews and debt collectors. The loan company started calling him too, demanding the $20,000. No job. No car, it was getting repossessed. He didn't have time for his mistress anymore. On the 8th day, my father's lawyer scheduled a meeting with Mark. It was at my father's old office, not a courtroom, not a law firm. My father said, let him come here. He knows this place, he came twice before, both times to borrow money. I understood what he meant. Let Mark watch himself fall apart in the one place he thought he could always get something. That morning, I put on the navy blue suit my father had picked out for me. I'd bought it for my training graduation ceremony. I checked myself in the mirror. The bruise on my cheek had faded to a faint yellow smudge, barely noticeable. I'd pulled my hair back and put on a little lipstick. I looked sharp. Lily was at daycare. My father drove me to the office. He didn't say much on the way, just let the radio play. When he parked, he turned and looked at me. Ready? Yeah. Remember, he said. You don't owe him a single inch today. He owes you. And today, he pays it all back. I opened the door and got out. The office was on the 3rd floor of an old building, the hallway smelling of dust and photocopier toner. Attorney Davis was already there, a gray-haired man in gold-rimmed glasses, with several file boxes stacked beside him. Mark hadn't arrived yet. I sat at one end of the table. My father was beside me, Attorney Davis at the side. A window was cracked open, the curtain puffing slightly in the breeze. The door clicked open. Mark walked in with the smell of cigarette smoke hanging on him. He'd never smoked before. He was wearing his gray suit, hair slicked back, shoes polished. A smile was plastered on his face as he came through the door. Attorney Davis. Long time no. Then he saw me. He saw my father. He saw the files laid out neatly on the table. His smile froze. He stood there for a few seconds, blinking. Then he forced out a pathetic smile. Anna. You're here. Let's talk, okay? Sit. My father pointed to the chair across the table. Mark sat down, rubbing his hands together. He was still smiling, but sweat was already beading on his forehead. He pulled a handkerchief from his pocket. I'd never seen it before. Attorney Davis wasted no time. He opened the first folder and pushed the bank statement across the table. Mr. Wilson, these are the records of $31,000 transferred out of your joint account with Anna Gray between last March and November. The receiving account belongs to one Emily Foster. Can you explain the purpose of these transfers? Mark's face went pale. He opened his mouth and finally stammered, I loaned it to a friend. Loaned. Attorney Davis opened the second folder. And this mortgage loan for $20,000. The signature on this document has been flagged by a handwriting expert as a forgery. Who signed Anna's name? Mark's hands were trembling now. His handkerchief was soaked, and he kept patting his face with it. Attorney Davis flipped open the third folder. You used the loan proceeds to make a down payment on a BMW, registered solely in your name. During the marriage, did you inform your spouse of this significant purchase? Mark was silent. He turned to me, his eyes a mess of something, entreaty or resentment, maybe both. He opened his mouth. Anna, I can explain. Wait, my father said. His voice was quiet, but it cut through. Attorney Davis opened the fourth folder. 20 pages of chat logs slid in front of Mark. He glanced down at them and seemed to deflate, slumping into his chair like the air had been let out of him. His handkerchief fell to the floor, forgotten. Fifth, Attorney Davis said, the auto shop. You've been selling customer data for about a year, earning roughly $7,000 in cash, none of which entered your joint account. Mr. Hayes has filed a police report, and we have a copy of the formal complaint. 5 folders, laid out like a jury exhibit. Mark slumped in his chair, his gray suit stained dark under the arms, his hair flattened with sweat, his face dripping. His voice quivered. This is invasion of privacy, you can't do this. My father stood up. 6'2", with broad shoulders even at 62. He walked around the table and stood over Mark. Mark cowered in his chair. Privacy. My father's voice was low, but every syllable was a nail. You emptied the joint account. You forged your wife's signature. You sold your client's private data. That's not privacy. That's crime. Mark, I saw you 7 years ago and I knew your eyes were wrong. But Anna loved you, so I let her marry you. I told myself if she was happy, I could be wrong. He leaned down, bracing both hands on the arms of Mark's chair. But you hit my daughter. You threw her and a sick child into a snowstorm. You funneled her earnings to another woman. You mortgaged her home to buy a car for your mistress. You signed her name like it was nothing. Did you think she had no father? Did you think Thomas Gray was dead? Mark's lips quivered, but no words came. My father straightened up and nodded to Attorney Davis. 3 documents were pushed forward. The first was a divorce agreement specifying that the apartment would belong solely to Anna Gray, with Mark Wilson forfeiting all rights. The second was an acknowledgement of debt, affirming that the $20,000 loan was Mark's sole responsibility. The third was a waiver of parental rights. Mark stared at the pages, sweat dripping onto the paper and blotting the ink in small dark spots. You can't do this. His voice was hoarse. He turned to me. Anna, say something. All those years together, you're really going to end it like this? Lily needs a father. You can't raise her alone. I looked at him. This man I'd loved for 6 years, married for 3, had a child with. His face was slick with sweat, his gray suit crumpled, sitting in that chair like a fish gasping on a pier. I felt nothing. No hate, No pain. Just nothing. Mark. I stood up and walked to the window, my back to him. You told me to get out. You called Lily a brat. Your exact words. You threw her into a snowstorm while she was burning up with fever, and you didn't even look back. Now you're telling me she needs a father. I turned around. If you don't sign, that's fine. The police report is already filed, for the forgery, and for the data theft. I can't say for sure whether you'll go to jail. But I can promise you this, nobody will hire a mechanic who sells his customers information. Mark stared at me like he'd never seen me before. He'd never imagined that the woman he'd slapped and thrown out would one day stand over him with ice-cold eyes. He signed. His hand shook so badly the pen barely wrote, but Attorney Davis examined the signatures and confirmed they were valid. After he signed, Mark threw the pen on the table and stumbled to his feet. At the door, he paused, his back to me, shoulders sagged. Anna, his voice was a rasp. The car, can I keep it? I need it for work. No, my father said. Mark stood there for a few seconds, then pulled the door open and walked out. The draft that swept in rustled the papers on the table. I stood by the window, watching a gray-suited figure stumble down the street below. He walked slowly, shoulders hunched, disappearing into the crowd. Attorney Davis filed the documents and nodded at me. Little Anna, your father was right, you're even tougher than he said. I smiled. It was the first genuine smile I'd given all day. That night, I thought it was over. But one person was still unaccounted for. Emily Foster. The woman who'd sat on my couch and waved me out the door. The woman who'd called me that hag and pushed Mark to leave me. Mark had signed away everything, but she still had consequences coming. On the 9th night, I saw her post on social media. A photo in an expensive restaurant, steak and wine on the table, an empty chair across from her. The caption read, "Some people just don't know when they've got a good thing." I knew she was waiting for me to reply. She wanted me to lose my temper, go after her in the comments, so she could screenshot it and call me a crazy ex-wife. She'd seen me lose my temper before. But I wasn't that person anymore. I took a screenshot of her post. Then I opened the chat logs I'd saved, those 20 pages. I picked the worst two, the one where she'd said, "When are you ditching that hag?" and his reply, "Soon." She doesn't suspect anything. I blurred her last name but left her face clear in the profile picture. I blurred his name but left the content untouched. Then I posted one image with one line. "Wishing you all the best. At Emily Foster." Then I silenced my phone, gave Lily a bath, and read her a story. She splashed everywhere, soaking my shirt. I wrapped her in a towel and she sneezed in my face, giggling. I wiped her nose and kissed her forehead. The next morning, my post had exploded. I didn't have many followers, but those 2 screenshots had been shared dozens of times. Mutual friends of Mark and Emily, people from the auto shop, from her insurance company, started sharing it. Comments flooded in. She was showing off her rich life with someone else's husband? Trash, karma's a bitch, didn't you say you were single, Emily? Emily left a dozen comments under my post, accusing me of defamation and threatening to sue. I ignored all of them and saved everything. Later that afternoon, things moved fast at her company. An old classmate of mine worked as the receptionist's sister, and she called to say the screenshots had appeared in Emily's office chat. Her boss called her in. I don't know exactly what was said. But that evening, Emily left the building carrying a cardboard box, coffee stains all over her new coat, her hair a mess, her makeup streaked, one high heel snapped off at the heel. She stood on the curb with one bare foot waving for a taxi, and someone snapped a photo. I saw that photo when my classmate sent it to me. I looked at it for a few seconds, then put my phone down and went back to folding Lily's little clothes. Emily was formally fired the next day. The official reason was a gross violation of professional ethics, but everyone knew the real story. She applied to other insurance companies, but the industry was small and the screenshots had traveled too far. Nobody would hire her. She tried real estate after that, but a month in, someone at her new office found the old posts, and she had to leave. She moved to another city, I heard. But those screenshots followed her everywhere. And Mark? I heard things about him too, though I never asked. Some of the girls at the store love viral videos. One day they showed me a clip, a man in a crumpled gray suit kneeling on the cement floor of a shopping mall's back hallway, crying and begging a woman facing away from him. I recognized the back of my own head. That video was taken about 2 months after Mark signed the divorce papers. He'd found out where I worked and cornered me in the back exit. When I walked out, he dropped to his knees in front of me, right in front of a dozen security guards, janitors, and random shoppers. He'd lost weight. His gray suit was pilled and shabby, his hair greasy, a fresh cut on his lip. On his knees, he looked up at me with wet eyes and said, "Anna, I'm so sorry. Please, just ask your dad to help me. I can't even pay rent. Tell him I'll never bother you again. I'll pay every cent of child support, just tell him to leave me alone." I stopped. I looked down at him. I'd imagined this scenario 100 times. What I'd say if he ever knelt before me. But when it actually happened, I realized I didn't want to say any of the things I'd rehearsed. I crouched down so we were eye to eye. He looked at me hopefully, maybe thinking I'd soften. "Mark," I said, "you called Lily a brat. You threw her out in the snow. You slapped me and you didn't blink." His mouth was open, tears and snot running down his face. "You're kneeling here," I said, "has nothing to do with me." I stood up and walked away. I didn't look back at the laughter or the camera phones. That video got turned into memes. The comments were vicious. One that stuck with me: "I've seen men propose on their knees, but this is the first time I've seen a man beg his ex-wife on his knees. Where was this energy when he was hitting her?" Mark disappeared after that. I heard he moved to a far suburb and started working construction. But the mechanic industry had blacklisted him. Mr. Hayes had spread the word. Nobody would hire a mechanic who sold client data. I heard he quit construction after a month, got a job stocking shelves at a supermarket, and always paid child support late, the last possible day, every time. I heard he got drunk in public once and was picked up by the police. I never asked for any of this. It just drifted in like random leaves. I let them go. Hatred takes effort, and I didn't want to spend any more effort on him. Lily is fine, by the way. I got promoted to floor supervisor at the store. My pay went from roughly $2,800 to $4,200 a month, about $3,000 a month after taxes. It's enough that I don't have to count every penny anymore. I put a little aside each month for Lily's education fund. I switched her to a better daycare. It costs a bit more, but the teachers are wonderful and the environment is warm. Lily loves it. Every morning, she stands at the door with her little backpack, shouting, "Mommy, hurry." I've grown to love the West Side apartment. The warm yellow walls, the light wood floors. My father planted jasmine and pothos on the balcony. Lily's room is covered in star stickers, and lately she's obsessed with dinosaurs. The walls are covered in colorful dinosaur decals, and every night I have to read her a dinosaur book. I can now name more dinosaurs than I ever thought possible. My father comes by every couple of days. Sometimes he brings groceries, sometimes toys, sometimes just himself. He sits on the couch and watches TV with Lily. He doesn't talk about the past much. When I bring it up, he waves his hand and says it's over. But I've noticed he always checks the water pipes and door locks when he's over. One time the kitchen faucet dripped, and he fixed it in half an hour without saying a word, though it took him a while to straighten his back afterward. He's 62 now. He's still strong, but I'm saving up to get him a full checkup next year. One night, after Lily was asleep, my father was sitting on the balcony drinking tea. I brought a glass of water and sat next to him. The moon was bright, and with no tall buildings in this part of town, we could see the whole sky. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, and then I asked, "Dad, the night you opened the door, what were you thinking?" He held his teacup and thought for a moment. "I thought," he said, "my daughter came back. And this time, I was going to keep her." "Then why did you send me to the West Side apartment alone?" "Some keeping." He laughed softly. "You're grown up. You have to walk your own road for a while. I can shelter you, but I can't walk for you." I leaned my head on his shoulder. He patted my hair, just like when I was little. Spring passed into summer. At work, I got my first quarterly bonus, a few $100s. It wasn't much, but it was the first time I'd earned something through management, scheduling, inventory, supplier coordination, not just selling perfume with a smile. I split it 3 ways, some into Lily's education fund, some to buy my father a new jacket. His old bathrobe had been wearing thin for years, and a little left over for a trip to the beach with Lily this summer. She's never seen the ocean, only pictures in books. My father grumbled about the jacket, called it a waste. But he wore it the same day. He picked Lily up from daycare in it, stood at the gate for the whole afternoon, and came back saying the teacher had asked where he'd bought it. I didn't say anything, but I smiled. Then, in June, I got an unexpected call. The number was local but unfamiliar. I answered, and a woman's voice came through, familiar, but I couldn't place it. "Anna? It's me." A pause. "Mark's mother." I straightened up at the counter. She'd always called me by my full name, her tone hard and unyielding. This time she sounded softer, but still awkward. "Mom," I said, she was still my elder, after all. "What do you need?" She hesitated. "I just wanted to ask, how's Lily? I haven't seen her in so long." I leaned against the counter, staring at the row of perfume bottles, and waited. She didn't push. "She's doing well. Growing fast. She talks a lot now, and she likes her daycare." Then, "Could I see her? I know I wasn't good to you before, but she's my granddaughter." I heard her out. She'd always found something wrong with me. My cooking was too salty. I didn't clean Mark's clothes properly. I was a burden on her son. Every holiday, she'd find a way to pick at me. And I'd smile and nod every time. Now her son was gone, and she was calling me. "Mom," I said evenly, "you can see Lily. But there are rules. Every Saturday morning, at my place or a place I choose, and either I or my father must be present. You can't take her alone, you can't take her overnight, and you can't take her out of my sight. If you agree, we can start this Saturday." There was a long pause. Then she said, "That's so strict." I just wanted to take her out somewhere. "No," I said. "Those are the legal conditions. No exceptions. Let me know if you agree, and I'll set it up." She said okay, and hung up. I went back to counting inventory. She never called back. My father heard about it and said, "Good. That's how it should be." Then he added, "If she comes back to you, send her my way." In late summer, I took Lily to the beach. I booked a small cottage by the water. At low tide, the beach was full of tiny crabs and shells. Lily chased the waves all afternoon, running barefoot, shrieking when the water came up, dashing back when it receded. Her face turned pink, her legs covered in sand. That night, we sat on the cottage porch, the salt breeze damp and cool, Lily curled in my lap looking at the sea. The moon scattered white fragments across the water. She yawned and leaned her head against my shoulder. "Mommy," she murmured, almost asleep. "Like beach?" "Like it." Hum. "Then I'll bring you every year." She didn't answer, she was already asleep. I held her, rocking her gently, the breeze lifting her fine baby hair. I looked down at her lashes, dark against her round cheeks, and my chest felt full, almost too full. Summer ended. Lily moved up to a new daycare class where the older kids learn letters and numbers. I bought her a new backpack, pink, with her favorite dinosaur pattern. It was so big it dragged on the ground, but she wore it proudly. One night, after I'd finished her bedtime story and she was asleep, I sat on the couch scrolling through my phone. I found the beach photos, Lily with her little shovel digging sand, my dad behind her with his new jacket, me in the distance waving at the camera. A stranger had taken that photo for us, blue-gray sea, white foam, bright sunlight making us all squint. Lily's hair blowing wild, my father's eyes crinkled with laughter, me smiling so hard my eyes were slits. I made it my phone wallpaper. I looked at it for a long moment before the screen went dark. I thought, this is good. This is enough. Summer's almost over. The fall-winter busy season at the store is coming. I'll need to get inventory and staffing ready. My father's blood pressure is a little high, so I'm watching his salt intake. My certification course ends next month, one more exam, then I'm done. The calendar is full. Every block is mine. Every task is my choice. Outside, the moon is bright. The jasmine blooms on the balcony are ghostly white. I locked my phone and stretched. Good night, Anna. Tomorrow is another day. That's how it goes. One day after another, not fast or slow. Spring winds passed, summer sun beat down, and Lily grew a couple of inches. Her dresses that used to hit her knees were now above them. I bought her new ones. My numbers at work kept improving. The counters under me won the quarterly sales award, and the store manager praised me at the meeting. I took the bonus check and stood there for a long moment. It wasn't much, just a few $100s, but it was my first management bonus. It wasn't about my sales pitch or my smile. It was about scheduling, rotating stock, vendor coordination, things I'd known nothing about a year ago. I split the bonus, part into Lily's education fund, part for a new jacket for my father, the one he'd been wearing for years, collar frayed, and a little set aside for the beach trip this summer. My father made a noise about wasting money, but he wore it that same day. He picked Lily up from daycare in it, stood at the gate for half the afternoon, and came back saying the teacher had asked where he'd gotten it. I didn't call him out, just smiled. When things settle down, someone always shows up to test the waters. One day in June, I was doing inventory at the counter when my phone rang. Unknown local number. I picked up. A woman's voice, familiar, but I couldn't place it right away. Anna? It's me. A pause. Mark's mother. I straightened. Before, she'd always called me by my full first and last name, tone sharp and clipped. This time, she was softer, but still awkward. "Hi," I said. She was an elder, after all. "What's going on?" She hesitated. "I just wanted to ask about Lily, how she's doing. I haven't seen her in such a long time." I leaned against the counter, looking at the perfume bottles lined up in front of me, and didn't answer right away. She waited. "She's good. Growing fast, talking a lot. She likes the daycare." Then, "Could I see her? I know I wasn't good to you before. But Lily is my granddaughter." I listened. Before, she'd always had something to say. My cooking was too salty, Mark's shirts weren't clean enough, I wasn't pulling my weight. Every visit, she'd find something to pick at. And I'd nod and say sorry, promise to do better next time. Now her son was gone. And she was calling me. "Mom," I said evenly, "you can see Lily. But there are rules. Saturday mornings, at my place or somewhere I agree to, with either me or my father present. You can't take her alone, you can't keep her overnight, you can't leave my sight with her. If that works, we can do this Saturday." A long pause. Then, "That's so strict. I just want to take her out." "No," I said. "Those are the conditions. No room to negotiate. Let me know if you want to do it, and I'll make the arrangements." She mumbled okay and hung up. I went back to counting inventory. She never called back. My father heard about it and nodded. "That's exactly right," he said. "If she reaches out again, send her to me." That Saturday, I took Lily to the beach. I'd taken a couple of vacation days. The cottage was small, right on the shore. At low tide, the beach was scattered with crabs and shells, and Lily spent the afternoon chasing the waves barefoot, squealing when the water came up, racing after it when it receded. Her face turned pink, and sand clung to her legs. That night, we sat on the porch, damp salt breeze coming off the water. Lily curled in my lap, looking at the sea, the moon breaking into pieces across its surface. She yawned, rested her head against my shoulder, and murmured, "Mommy, like beach?" "Yeah. Mum. Then I'll bring you every year." She didn't answer, she was already asleep. I held her, swaying a little, watching the breeze lift her fine hair and let it fall. Her lashes cast tiny shadows on her cheeks. My chest felt full, like it was going to overflow. After we got back, it was the same rhythm again: work, pick up Lily, cook, bedtime. My father came by every other day, sometimes to help with Lily, sometimes just to sit. He'd started learning how to use his phone camera, taking dozens of photos of Lily, blurry ones included, saving them all to show her when she's older. We got a new hire at work, a fresh graduate, assigned to my floor, handling the accessories counter. He was sharp and quick, but prone to rushing and mistakes. One day he misentered a discount and almost cost us a few $100s. I walked him through the correction, didn't yell, just showed him where he went wrong. He lowered his head and mumbled, "Sorry, Anna, I'll be careful next time." Looking at him, red-faced with embarrassment, I remembered my own early days as a supervisor. I'd messed up the schedule, gotten called in by the manager, and stood in the hallway for a full minute before I could knock on the door. When I called my father that night, he said, "Everyone starts somewhere. You've been doing this 2 minutes. You made a mistake. Fix it and move on. Nothing to be ashamed of." I patted the kid's shoulder. "It's okay. Everyone messes up when they're new. Just don't make the same one twice. Redo the form, I'll look it over." He said, "Yes," and scurried off. When I turned, I caught my own reflection in the glass. Same face, but the look was different from a year ago. Eyes forward, chin up. I used to avoid my own reflection. Not anymore. At the end of August, I made my father get a full checkup. He kept saying he was fine, but I had Attorney Davis help me book the appointment. I took the morning off to go with him. He was in and out of exam rooms for hours. I sat in the waiting room, my stomach a little tight. The results came back fine, everything in range, except his blood pressure was slightly elevated. Watch the salt, the doctor said, and I finally breathed. My father grumbled when we left, told you it was nothing. But his step was lighter. I took him to lunch. He tried to refuse, said he could eat at home, but I pulled him into a Chinese restaurant. We ordered mild dishes, and I poured him a glass of warm water. Dad, we're doing this every year from now on. I'm not asking. He took a sip, looked at me over the rim of the glass. His gaze was different than before, not, when will she grow up, but, she already has. Fine, he said. Your call. When the food came, he used his chopsticks to put a piece of fish in my bowl. I watched the trembling fish in his chopsticks and remembered him doing this when I was little, 7 or 8, sitting on a tall chair and swinging my legs, him picking out every bone before putting the fish in my bowl. Now I'm the one pouring him water and serving him food. After lunch, I drove him home. When he was about to get out, he turned back. Anna, do you want me to pick Lily up tomorrow? You get off late. No, I asked the manager to let me leave early tomorrow. Okay. He opened the door, then paused. Your jasmine on the balcony, the second bloom is coming in. Check it out. I will. He got out, took the leftover bag, and walked slowly toward the building. I watched him until the door closed behind him, then shifted the car into gear. When I got home, I checked the jasmine. The second bloom had just started, small white buds tucked among the green leaves, a faint scent when I leaned in. I touched the leaves, they were cool and smooth. I watered all the pots and stood on the balcony for a while. The west side was quiet at night. In the distance, downtown lights sparkled like diamonds. The breeze came through the window, carrying that particular coolness of late summer. Summer was ending. In September, Lily would move to a new daycare class, the older group, where they started learning letters and numbers. I'd bought her a pink backpack with a dinosaur on it. She carried it proudly, even though it dragged on the floor. That night, after she was asleep, I sat on the couch scrolling through my phone. Work group chat had next month's schedule up. I glanced at it, my shifts looked reasonable. Then I opened my photo album, pictures from the beach, Lily digging in the sand, my father in his new jacket, me waving from a distance. I set that photo as my lock screen. I looked at it for a moment before the screen went dark, thinking, I could do this forever. Summer's almost over. Lily will start her new class. The store's busy season is coming. My father's blood pressure needs watching. My certification course has one final exam next month. The calendar is full. Every item on it is mine. Every item is my choice. The moon is bright outside, lighting the jasmine flowers white on the balcony. I locked my phone, stretched, and stood up. Good night, Anna. Tomorrow is another day. That's my story. Nothing spectacular, nothing cinematic. Just an ordinary woman who got thrown out in a snowstorm and spent the next few months taking back everything she'd lost, not with violence or screaming, but with paper, signatures, and a father who knew how to count. I think about that night sometimes. The cold, the slippers, Lily burning up in my arms. I'd thought it was the end. It was the beginning of something else entirely. I don't hate Mark anymore. It's not forgiveness, I'm not that generous. It's just that he's no longer part of my life. He's a chapter 1 closed, a receipt I threw away. Emily called me once before she left the city, apologized in a low, shaky voice. I told her I didn't need her apology, she'd made choices, and those choices had consequences. I wasn't the one she needed to make peace with. A couple of months ago, a new girl started working at the store. Soft-spoken, shy, barely over 20. She spent her breaks crying in the back. Her boyfriend controlled everything, her phone, her schedule, her friendships. He'd accused her of not loving him enough and smashed 2 of her phones. One afternoon, I found her crying at the counter. I sat down with her and told her the short version of my story. "You're 20, I said. You have your whole life ahead of you. Do you want to spend it like this?" She looked up at me, eyes wet. "I'm afraid I won't find anyone better." I smiled. "Someone better won't make you cry like this. Remember this, people treat you the way you let them. Don't let him." She quit a few weeks later and moved back home. Before she left, she came to say goodbye. "Anna," she said, "I won't let anyone treat me like that again." "Good," I said. That's all I wanted to hear. Now I'm sitting at my kitchen table, writing this down. The light above is warm yellow. Lily is asleep in her room, her little dinosaur clutched to her chest. My father just left, he came over for dinner, fixed the hallway light, and told me to water the jasmine. I can smell it from here. This is what I have now, a small apartment, a happy child, a father who's still here, a job I'm learning to love, and a calendar full of things I chose for myself. The man who hit me is hauling boxes somewhere. The woman who sat on my couch is a stranger in another city. They tore each other apart in the end, and nobody won. And me? I'm still here. That night in the snow, I thought I was a piece of snow that would melt under anyone's foot. But after the thaw, there's solid ground underneath. Hard and unshakable. Snow falls every winter, and every spring the ground is still there. That's who I am now. Lily shifts in her sleep and murmurs something, then goes quiet. The moon is bright, the jasmine is blooming, and the air is warm. I close my eyes and let myself rest. Tomorrow is another day.